If you have not seen Star Wars The Last Jedi, do not watch this video. Even if you feel that you are okay with getting spoiled before seeing the film, no. The best way to enjoy this film is to go in as fresh as possible. So please, if you have not seen this movie, do not watch this video. Okay, so right off the bat, I just want to say that I don't really have any massive problems with The Last Jedi. There are a couple things that are sort of nitpicky that I'm going to talk about later in this video, but there isn't really anything that really sticks out as the one thing that would make me not enjoy this movie overall. I do want to point out I've only seen it once, so I can't really comment on the rewatchability. I personally think it will be a very easy to rewatch movie, since it is very long and very dense. There are a lot of story things going on, but I feel like when some people would watch it a second time, they're going to skip over certain parts of the story. For example, if they want to watch a lot of Rey and Luke stuff, I feel like they're going to try and skip over the Canto Bight stuff, or probably the Resistance stuff running away from the First Order. I remember when I was watching it in the theatre, I was feeling like the pacing at some times were a little bit weird. It was good overall, but there were some scenes where they felt like they were cut a little too short, and it was edited in a weird way. For example, Luke would be talking to Rey, and then after about a minute it would cut back to the Resistance for about another minute, and then back to Luke and Rey, when it could have just stayed on Luke and Rey, then gone to the Resistance. I don't know, little things like that were sometimes a little jarring. Rian Johnson's directing style was also really evident, which wasn't a bad thing at all. It's a great directing style, and it really told the story really well, but for the first time viewing, it was a little intimidating, since it didn't really feel like a Star Wars movie. It was kind of uncomfortable, but in hindsight, it was perfect, because it was this new story, everything was just new and different, and that's what I love so much about this movie. It took so many risks in the perfect ways. I think this is a big difference between Force Awakens and Last Jedi. J.J. Abrams had said once before that Star Wars doesn't do flashbacks. That's what he said for The Force Awakens. He said they do visions. But in this movie, they do flashbacks, because why not? The famous "I have a bad feeling about this" line wasn't in the film. And I guess some people might be disappointed about that, but it's like, why? It's just a line. Sure, it has been in every Star Wars movie, and now you can no longer say that line has been in every Star Wars movie. But this movie kind of asks the questions of why bother if you can just tell the story however you need to, then there's no point throwing these random things in or taking things out because Star Wars does or doesn't do it. It showed that we don't really need to have a certain Star Wars style. It just means that the story can take the style whatever way it wants to go, and the story is what comes first, and the story in this film is excellent. The characters are basically perfect. At first, Luke sort of seemed goofy to me. You know, at first he chucks the lightsaber over his shoulder and he goes doing his little goofy things, but honestly, after a while, it didn't really bother me, because it was just a guy. It was Luke. He had been on the island for so long, and his character had changed so much that it was really strange to me, because he just didn't seem like Luke Skywalker, but he changed, and through the movie he kind of fell back into the old Luke Skywalker, and you could see him struggling, and you could see his character really changing. Mark Hamill did an excellent job of portraying Luke Skywalker. Rey was also really good. She was quite ignorant of what the Force really is, and as she began to learn, she really fell into the role that she needed to. She was really great. Daisy Ridley did such a great job this time. I really liked her performance in The Force Awakens, but this time she really just hit it out of the ballpark. She did such a good job as Rey. Rey's character is very, very likable, and I can't wait to see her in Episode 9. Kylo Ren's character as well has been fleshed out. He of course killed Snoke and then blamed Rey for it later, but Kylo Ren's now kind of taking a leadership role, since he, I guess, commands Hux around, and so much of the First Order has been fractured that I guess in Episode 9 he will be like the leader of the First Order, and Rey will be the leader of the Resistance. I think Rey will sort of start a new Jedi Order. I think there will be Jedi, but I don't think they'll be the same as before. I think they'll be totally separate from the original Jedi Order, and maybe they'll still be called Jedi. I don't know, it depends how Rey feels. Rey did hear Luke say it's time for the Jedi to end, so maybe she'll think that a different name is appropriate. Whatever she thinks though, I think she'll train some of those children, like that child at the end. I think that's what it was hinting to. I think she'll start a new little group of Jedi, and I think the small group of Resistance will grow a little bit before Episode 9, along with Rey's Jedi, and then in Episode 9, also, Kylo Ren will have the Knights of Ren, and what will probably be a smaller First Order, since everything's all fractured. And I think what will happen is both the Resistance and the First Order are almost equals, and they're just going to battle it out for control of the galaxy. Leia was also a really good character in this movie. She was pretty perfect for the role. Carrie Fisher makes me very sad that she has passed away and that we won't get to see her again in Episode 9. But she did such a great job. It is still very sad to see her go. I don't know how they're going to take out her character. I originally thought that the way they took out her character was that scene at the start where she gets blown up out of the ship. But then that weird scene where she starts to use the Force to return to the ship, that was really weird to me, and probably one of my down parts of the movie, the part I didn't really like. Like, I don't know, I'm fine with Leia using the Force, but her being out, blown up into space, everyone else dying, and her just floating there, and then still being alive somehow, and it was just a weird moment that I turned to my friends, because I was watching with my friends, and we're just all looking at each other like, what just happened? It was just really, really strange, and again, I do like this movie for taking risks, but that was less of a risk to me and more of just a out of place moment that I don't know really why it was in there. Rose's character was good. She was, I don't know, she was one of the less memorable parts of the movie to me. That whole subplot of Canto Bight was interesting, but it was just not really what I expected. You know, first it starts with them trying to find the code breaker, and then they didn't, and then they have a weird chase on those creature things. I don't know, they were just running, and then they were getting like followed. That whole scene sort of fell a little flat for me. I still enjoyed it, but I feel like there could have been a bit more happening there to make it more interesting. I don't know how I feel about the whole Finn/Rose situation where they kissed and all that sort of thing. They might get into a relationship. I don't know how it's going to work though with Rey as well. I don't know what's going to happen. It's still up in the air with them, but it was still interesting to see. In this movie, Poe was one of my favourite characters. He was done really well. Oscar Isaac, again, amazing job. All the actors did a pretty great job in this movie, but Poe really shined to me as a character, because after Leia was taken out, all of his interactions with Vice Admiral Holdo, that's the name, right? Holdo, yeah. All of those interactions were great. I really liked that he was trying to take initiative. I like how he's forming into a leader. He might be the leader of the Resistance, while Rey's like the leader of the Jedi. Almost like the same relationship between the Chancellor and Yoda in the Clone Wars and prequels, but except the Chancellor won't be, or sorry, Poe won't be an evil guy, unless he is, who knows. But he was really great in this movie. I loved every interaction he had. At the end, when Poe and Rey formally met, I think that they were setting up something for Episode 9. Maybe they'll get into some sort of relationship, and Rose and Finn will get into a relationship. Who knows how that's all going to go down. But either way, I think that Rey and Poe will be the two leaders of the Resistance, since Rey's the Jedi, and Poe's like the natural-born leader. Alright, now let's get to talking about the sort of main spoilery parts of the movie. So the first thing we're going to talk about is Snoke's death. I feel that a lot of people are going to be very angry that the main villain was killed off, but personally, I think this was very important. I think for Kylo Ren now, his character has been excellent, and I love the conflict. And I think the fact that he killed Snoke in, I guess it was anger in a way. I think he felt betrayed, and he noticed that he was used. Han Solo in The Force Awakens told him, Snoke's using you, and he noticed that as soon as he said to him that Snoke was one who connected the two of them. I think Kylo then noticed that, oh shit, yeah, he is using me. And he noticed that that was the point where he had to take action. And I love the way he did it with the turning of the lightsaber and then slicing him in half. That was epic. I hope they don't try and bring Snoke back. Or if they do, they've got to do it right. The only way I feel they can bring Snoke back is, I guess, in like another form. I don't know. We know nothing about Snoke. There were so many theories about Snoke. And he turned out to just be... He just was a very, very powerful Force user. And he's dead now. That's it. But what I was saying is that I think it's important for Kylo Ren's character because now he's taking a leadership role within the First Order. And he's trying to rule the galaxy himself. He said to Rey, he offered, to rule the galaxy with him. Because I think that's now what he's trying to do. He's trying to achieve galactic conquest. Not his master. And he's not trying to do his master's bidding. But now he is trying to take control and rule the galaxy. And him being the supreme leader. And I think that's a really cool contrast with everything that's been going on. I think that it was fitting for Snoke to die. It's a shame we didn't get to see anything about his character. I think if he was more fleshed out in The Force Awakens, it would have been fine. But I guess just there it is, a mysterious character. He's dead now, unless he gets brought back, but I doubt it. Also, what I find quite funny is that machine that everyone thought was going to be the resurrection machine was literally just a telescope. So that's kind of funny. Next big spoiler is Yoda returning. When he first faded in, I turned to my friend and I just said, what the fuck is that? It looked so bad in that first frame. I looked at him like I don't know if it looked bad or if it was CGI or whatever it was, but from that certain angle when he first appeared, he looked so weird. He looked worse than the Rebels Yoda. He just, I don't know what he was. He looked disfigured. But in every other shot, he looked really good. He looked like the puppet. I think there was one shot that looked exactly like the Return of the Jedi shot, where he's walking to Luke. And it looked so great. And I loved that he used the Force to do the lightning and hit the tree. And his line, I think, was really great. Because it harps back to when he asked Luke to pass on his knowledge and, pass on what he had learned. And he just said to him, Luke was freaking out after he burnt the tree. He was like, that's got ancient Jedi texts in it. How could you do that? And Yoda was like, did you read them? And Luke was like, yeah. And then Yoda was just like, did you teach Rey them? And Luke was like, well, yeah. And he was like, well, that's fine. Who cares? And I think that was so perfect. Yoda's character was perfectly encapsulated. I'm so glad he showed up. I really wanted one of the Force Ghosts to show up, and that was perfect for me. I'm so glad that they decided to do it, and with Yoda as well, perfect. The next big spoiler is Luke's death. I think that when it comes to Luke, I think it was really great that he, sort of made himself a mirage. It's a shame we didn't get to see Luke fight in the final battle, and we didn't really get a final lightsaber duel. But again, we don't need that sort of thing, like the, I guess, Star Wars tradition of always got to be a final lightsaber duel, because we got that amazing lightsaber duel between Kylo Ren, Rey, and all the guards. This was perfect, I think. I love that Luke had to die in peace. I love that he was on his island, he looked out at the sunset, and it was like the closing of his character arc. Not that I think it's finished. I think he'll be in episode 9 as a Force Ghost. I think he has to be prominent because Rey didn't really finish her training or really do much training. I think Luke will try and train her just a bit, but I think she's going to take her own path. Rey is extremely powerful. In this movie we saw her use the Force, use a lightsaber. She was great. So I think that she has a good understanding of the Force, but not necessarily the Jedi or light side. So that's why I think her new order, or her Jedi order, are going to be more balanced, and it's going to be really great. It's a possibility that Kylo and her will team up, but Kylo will sort of come to his senses and not really need galactic conquest. We don't know yet. Their connection in this movie was great. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But overall, I think Luke's death was a sad one since we didn't get to see much of Luke in this new trilogy. But I guess we didn't really get to see much of Han either. I think it's, again, we gotta let Rey and stuff have their character arcs, and Rey's been so great, you know, at the end when she's helping everyone, and she's such a perfect Jedi, and I think her character is so great. Daisy Ridley's so great. I think the whole thing with Rey is great, and I think Luke kind of had to die because he was the powerhouse. The thing about Luke and Snoke is that one of them can't be alive without the other, because they're too powerful. Whatever side has one, if, like, let's say Luke just died, Snoke didn't, then the First Order would win, because Snoke's just too powerful. So if Snoke had to die, Luke had to die. That was kind of just what had to happen. And the final death is Phasma's death. This kind of took me by surprise. She didn't show up for much of the movie. When she did, there was a badass fight scene between her and Finn fell off, and he just came up, hit her in the face, and the best line, the best line that came out of both Finn and Phasma's mouth through probably this whole trilogy, where she goes, you know, "You'll always be scum," and then he was just like, "Yeah, rebel scum," and then just smacked her with the thing. You could see her eye, which was good because, you know, we all wanted to see Gwendolyn Christie actually being in the mask, so I guess we got to see a tiny bit of her. And then she fell, and assuming she died since she fell into a massive fireball. But who knows, maybe a bit of her armor is heat resistant and only burnt her eye or something. Who knows? But I think it's pretty probable that she's dead. They wouldn't just let her not die at that point. I've noticed that in this series, she actually hasn't killed anyone. She's fired a blaster now. In the last movie, she never really fired a blaster. She has now fired it. But she hasn't killed anyone, so, yeah. She's a bit of an underutilized character. She's kind of like Boba Fett, but she at least had a good death. She didn't just get knocked out by a blind guy into a Sarlacc pit. No, she had a good death, so, don't know how I feel about it, but I think it was, pretty badass. Alright, as promised, let's talk about Rey and Kylo Ren's little Skype calls. At first I thought it was shot really weirdly, and they did it quite a couple times throughout the movie, but it was enjoyable. I liked that they've got that connection, and they're talking to each other, and I really liked that we saw that flashback scene 3 times. I liked that we saw it from Luke's story perspective, where he just crushed everything, then from Kylo Ren's perspective, where Luke is trying to kill him, and then the final, most probably true perspective, where Luke was going to do it, and then, you know, decided, no way, I'm not going to do that, but it was too late. I really liked all of that. We got to see Kylo Ren as a Jedi, we got to see his blue lightsaber. That was really cool. That whole scene was almost shot like a fan film. I don't know if anyone else got that impression, it just looked that way to me. But, I really like that Kylo Ren has his reasons for turning. I like that he and Rey sort of, he really feels connected to Rey. He wants to bring peace. He wants to, as he said, let the past die. He wants to just end everything. Get rid of the First Order, get rid of the Resistance, get rid of his mother, and just let him and Rey start over. And I really liked that about his character. I liked that he was willing to kill Snoke. I liked that, I don't know, I feel like their connection's going to continue, and I think it all culminated in that final scene, where Rey was getting onto the Falcon. She could see Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren looked at her, and because Kylo Ren had just been like, let's take over the galaxy, and then he went to attack, Rey was just like, no, you've blown it. Rey gave him his chance. She went to his ship, she did everything she could to try and talk sense to him, and he just wanted to take over everything. And the way she said it to him, you know, in that scene where he was like, come on, we can rule together, and she was like, no, don't be like this. I like that she called him Ben as well. She was just like, you know, Ben, don't be like this. This is not the way to go. And then and then they broke, they not snapped, but they pulled apart Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber, which I guess means that Rey's gonna have to build her own lightsaber in Episode 9. I feel Episode 9 will be like maybe a year or so after this movie. I think they need some time. The Resistance is gonna build up. The First Order is gonna decrease in size, because they're just gonna be so fractured after Last Jedi. The First Order was crumbled. Every faction really is really low, and it's gonna be chaos in Episode 9. But I think Rey will take the Kyber Crystal, since you can actually see it, which was amazing. You could see the Kyber Crystal in the lightsaber. So I think she's just gonna have to use that Kyber Crystal, and she's gonna build her own lightsaber. I don't think we'll see her building it. I think she'll be a much more powerful Jedi in Episode 9. Kylo Ren's gonna be more powerful himself. But they're both gonna be, they're gonna have no more guidance. They are now gonna have to take the role of Master, both Kylo Ren and Rey. Because right now, they are the two most powerful Force wielders in the entire galaxy, which is insane. Alright, now let's talk about Rey's parents. I am not surprised that it's just no one. I've been saying this for a while, that it might be no one. That's why I had the theory about Iden and Del, because they were just rebellion heroes, that's all they were. And they were even less than that, her parents. They were scavengers who sold her for not drug money, for alcohol money or drinking money. And I don't know, I like it. Of course, it means we don't really get an explanation of where her power comes from. But I guess there were just two very, very force-sensitive scavengers. I feel we'll get an explanation of, like, the Force Awakening. Because she's always had that power. But I think she was just a pretty normal Force user, you know, that hadn't unlocked her powers. But then, I think something would have happened that really made her power as great as it is now. Because I don't think there's a way that you can say that it's unexplained, you know, to have her powers so powerful. And in hindsight, it makes sense when Daisy Ridley said that it was quite obvious in The Force Awakens who her parents were. Because in The Force Awakens, she's constantly going, yeah, I'm no one. You know, I'm not special. I'm no one. And it's like, yeah, she knows. She's always known who her parents are. So it's like, yeah, that makes sense. And everyone was freaking out about it, thinking it was Luke or Han or nah, it's just no one. It's another reason why this movie is so great. It literally just gets all these fan theories and just says, nah, they're all wrong. Like, there's no explanation for this. And some people are probably going to get pissed at that. You know, Rey's parents are no one. Snoke, it's just a guy, and he's dead now. All these things are like, yeah, it's just nothing. And some people are probably going to be mad that Rey's not a Skywalker, because the Skywalker lineage, but Kylo Ren is a Skywalker, or at least he's part of the Skywalker bloodline, and that's talked about in this movie. And like, I feel like some people still won't get it, and they'll be pissed at that, but it's like, it's pretty obvious. Now, there is a lot more I'd like to say, but this video is really, really long. It's 23 minutes long, so I will be making a separate video further talking about this later. I doubt anyone's watching to this point, but if you are, leave the word Noke weed every day. Put that in the comments if you're at this point. I hope you guys have enjoyed today's video, and I hope you guys have enjoyed Last Jedi. You guys can talk about whatever spoilers you want in the comments, because anyone watching this video should have already watched the movie, but maybe still put a spoiler tag in just to make sure, you know, you don't want anyone to come into this movie spoiled. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.